Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Purposeful Conversations with me, Emee, here in the Pame Code Facebook community. I'm so excited about our conversation today because I know that there are so many heart-based entrepreneurs in our community. I know that you've all read my books, the Psychology in Your Life book series, but for some reason, I'm sort of attracting so many of you who are heart-based. You want to serve and you're using your powers, and you feel that your purpose is actually to serve your audience. So I invited our special guest today, who is a business and podcast coach, and she's the managing director of Slaying Your Side Hustle. And we're going to talk about what it means to be a heart-based entrepreneur. I'm so excited. So let's all welcome Olivia Powell. Hi, Olivia.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching this and thanks for having me here.
Well, thank you for joining us. I'm really excited about this conversation because I've heard of this term heart-based entrepreneur. And I know that so many of our members can identify with this. But tell me a little bit about, what is that? What does it mean to be a heart-based entrepreneur?
Such a good question. And I feel like it is a bit of a trendy term that is like pretty popular at the moment. You see all over the internet a little bit. And the same thing kind of popped up for me when I learnt the term. I was like, what does heart-based entrepreneur even really mean? Like, is it just another fluffy word? Does it actually have like a proper meaning to it? So as I kind of went along my own coaching journey and learnt a bit more about, intentions behind being a business owner and intentions behind selling and all this sort of stuff, it kind of became more apparent as to what heart-based entrepreneurialism actually is. So for me personally, what it means to me is basically coming from a good intentioned place. So growing up, and I know a lot of people can relate to this, especially if you're like in your 20s, like I'm 29, so if you're in your 30s, 40s and so on, I'm even in like the 90s movies, there's like this portrayal of like the successful middle-aged guy who like rips people off. He might be a car salesman or a CEO of a company, and it's very much about like numbers and money and profit and, that really big energy sort of thing. And it's kind of like, if you can't give me what I want, see you later. It's very black and white, very down the line, direct and straight sort of thing. And with heart-based entrepreneurialism, or being a heart-based, business owner, the way I think of it is completely different to like get. And it's actually more about give, and meeting people where they're at. So with coaching specifically, like the way I operate is not just about having as many clients as I possibly can and just having this income or whatnot. It's actually all about like, okay, how can I connect with this other human? For me to actually, for a client to come to me and wear their heart on their sleeve, I usually have to do that first to make space for that, for them to feel comfortable for that energetically. So being a heart-based entrepreneur is that element, but also like creating, like if you're a content creator and you do your own social media marketing, or you at least create it, having that soul connection with your audience is really important. Like being able to create content that speaks directly into that person's soul, that they feel understood. And it's like you connect heart to heart. That to me is what, being a heart-based entrepreneur is all about. And it's not about, the old grabby energy of just like trying to rip people off to get paid or anything like that. It's actually about having the intention of wanting to show up, give and serve, and having that connection with people outside of just yourself. I think that's really important.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's actually so in line with what we stand for in our community. The community is called PAME. It's actually a Greek word which means let's go together. So there's something about, us coming together, connecting with people, and PAME is an acronym that stands for purpose, action, momentum, and energy. So purpose is really at the heart of heart-based, entrepreneurship, that there is an intention, usually an intention to serve and connect with people. And it's not just superficial. It's like energetically connecting and serving your audience. So I think it's wonderful that we're having this conversation. But I know that for some heart-based entrepreneurs, it can be quite a struggle. There are some challenges that they face because it's not, it's becoming more acceptable now, but it's not the mainstream for the past decade. And so from your experience, from working with your clients, or from you being a heart-based entrepreneur yourself, what are the common challenges that you face at the moment?
So I think a lot of heart-based entrepreneurs do two things that aren't necessarily wrong, but two things that can hold them back. So the first one is overgiving. Yeah. So because we, like if you're anything like us, I suppose, and I imagine you would be if you're watching this, because you do consider yourself a heart-based entrepreneur, you might have good intentions, you want to rock up and serve for other people. Sometimes you can overgive to those people and then you actually don't fill up enough of your own self cup or your own self-love in your own self-love cup.
Yeah.
So what can tend to happen is that you actually get energetically drained by giving too much to other people. So this is why I say, like, it's really wonderful when you've got that bigger purpose outside of yourself and that need to want to contribute to the greater good or this community or this type of person or whatever the case may be. But you've also got to really look after yourself, because if your cup is empty, you can't
Yeah.
really fill up other people's cups, and the best analogy for that, and I find this a lot with like my clients that are mothers, they struggle with this a little bit, because it's like the whole analogy of like, if you're on a plane flight and the plane's going down, you have to put on your own oxygen mask first in
Mm.
order to be able to put the oxygen mask on your child or your partner or whatever the case may be. And it really is the same thing with business, because if you overexert yourself too much, you give too much away, you let people take advantage of you or walk all over you, and you don't have good boundaries, because you pride yourself in being that kind, giving, humanitarian person, which is so lovely and pure and wonderful. The problem with that is if you take it too far and you don't have those boundaries, you actually don't show up as your best self, and you actually can't help people to the best of your ability because you're not helping yourself.
Yeah, you get
So
you
that's
get
the first
drained
one.
as a result of that. And we actually did have a conversation about this a couple of weeks ago, something to do with burnout. Because again, so many of our members in this community are giving. They
Mm.
have this purpose to serve, and whether they are entrepreneurs or just in the giving profession, like carers, teachers, nurses, they find themselves getting drained as a result of over giving. They forget to look after themselves, and it's not necessarily being selfish to look after yourself. You need to look after yourself as well, because if you are, yeah, if your cup is empty, then what can you give? And for heart-based entrepreneurs, when they overlook the fact that they have to take care of themselves too, they might run out of business. They might shut business in the end, because they couldn't cope with it. And as you've said, setting boundaries, knowing your purpose, I think is a good starting point. Knowing what you're aiming to do and who you are serving is a good starting point. But also having boundaries and not over giving. You give your hand, and your people take the whole arm, or maybe even the whole body, with nothing left for you. So in terms of setting boundaries, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the first thing I thought I'd just say is, like, if you have nurses in this group, hey ladies and men, I am actually a nurse as well. So I'm a registered nurse and midwife. And what I've found is, like, in healthcare, and particularly now more than ever, um, it's all like, this is the thing. This is where it can get really energetically draining, because if you are in a giving profession, like, you give an inch, they take a mile as well, right? So if you're constantly giving all day, you come home exhausted. So self-care is like so imperative to these people. I know, because I went through burnout in my full-time career as a registered nurse and midwife, and then also in my first business. So I'm actually really familiar with burnout. And for me personally, it's something that I've got to really watch out for, because once I'm on a roll, it's really hard to get me to stop. I've got to consciously go, okay, now this is the time to clock off. You need some time to unwind, even though you're still feeling really motivated. You've got to actually start to know what your limits are and treat your feelings as flags. So if you're like, I know for me, I can go real hard at it one day, and then the next day, I just don't have much to give.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then it really affects my productivity, my energy. I just know, like, it sounds strange, but like, on like an energetic and metaphysic kind of level, it's like everything doesn't seem to come together well that day, because I've exerted
Yeah.
all my energy the day before, and then
You're
I've burnt myself
drained.
out.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's what happened in my first business. I literally didn't take any time off. I was doing way too much, overdid it. And in the end, I was like, you know what? This is just not worth it. My health started to suffer. And then in the end, I just stopped it. And that was a big reason why that first business, quote unquote, failed. It failed because
Mm.
I failed to show up for myself. That's what really happened. And so, yeah, that's a really big thing. The next thing is, like, in terms of boundaries, like, when you're an overgiver as well, what can tend to happen is, like, and I don't mean this I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't offend anybody, but like, if you overgive and people know it, sometimes they can take advantage of that,
I
you know?
know. Yeah.
Yeah, and they know, they're kind of like, oh, Olivia's a pushover, or Olivia will say yes, or she won't say no, she'll take more on. And I'm the type of person anyway that bites off more than I can chew sometimes, and then just like chew like hell, and it doesn't actually work for me. So self-management and self-moderation is extremely important, guys. So the first thing I can say is like getting really, like really listen to your body. Actually start to kind of notice, okay, where am I holding my tension? What feels sore? What health manifestations are coming up for me? You know, why am I feeling the way that I am? What can I do better with that? You know, so for me, when I worked with my own business coach, a big thing that I needed help with was being told to slow down when I needed it, but then
Mm-hmm.
more importantly, learning it for myself. And being a nurse, by the way, you're used to pushing through because you have to, you have no other choice. You do double shifts, you still work and you miss your breaks, you hold on to your bladder all day long, and you know what I mean? Like you don't really get many chances where you can say no because that's just the nature of the job. So that's what I was trained in. So having, you know, that sort of mindset in business didn't really work too well. I had to kind of readjust how things would work with that. So what I do now in terms of having boundaries is not just boundaries for myself, but boundaries for others. So knowing what my limits are, knowing what the signs are of me starting to push those boundaries and limits a little bit. So for example, and also working with your energy too, like as I said before this interview, like I'm very energized and raring to go in the mornings, and then by the evenings I taper off, and my best work doesn't happen then. So I recognize that I really need to clock off at about 5 o'clock, sometimes even 6 in the evenings. And the evenings are for me and family. So, you know, cooking a healthy dinner, watching something funny or lighthearted, just resting and not having your brain tick over constantly. And also having one day off a week from business as well is really important. Not answering messages, not getting back to clients, you know, not doing any social media stuff, not doing any podcast episodes, just having a day or two to yourself or even with your family, at least weekly minimum. And the other thing as well is like, this is something I see a lot of, you know, codependent people do, which is a classic sign of, you know, the overgiving role, is like back when I was working in MLM, so a network marketing company, which was the first one that didn't work out, you know, I see a lot of people discounting their products when they really don't need to, you know, or making concessions for people when it's like, that actually shouldn't necessarily happen. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like people coming back with a product 6 months later and saying it didn't work for me, and it's like, well, actually I'm really sorry, but it's 6 months later. Or, you know, I had a customer once who bought a whole bunch of lipsticks and she lost them in the taxi ride home, and she came back wanting me to replace them. And I had to kind of gently say to her, I'm really sorry, but, you know, that was actually on you. Like, I sold you these lipsticks, everything was intact when I sold it to you. The
Mm.
fact that you lost it when you were drunk in a
It's not your
taxi really
fault.
is not my responsibility, you
Mm.
know. But the old me would have definitely, like, I struggled with that. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
So having boundaries is really important. And I feel like a lot of people that are hard workers and heart-based entrepreneurs and business owners, yeah, overgive, overexert, don't have boundaries, struggle with balance, and then they just burn out, and then their businesses start to crumble.
Yeah, we actually did have a conversation very similar to this a couple of weeks ago about being able to say no without feeling guilty about it. Because the risk is, yeah, with heart-based entrepreneurs and those in the giving professions, they give so much, and without the boundaries, with them people pleasing, almost not really wanting to
Yes,
say no, they end up being taken advantage of by people who can see that they can do that to them. But there are I still have faith in people that some, you know, many of them, they don't actually do this on purpose to take advantage of you, but it's if
totally.
they see the opportunity, they will say, well, you know, it seems like it's okay with her, so, you know,
Yeah,
why not? It's not my problem. If she wants to say no, all she has to do is say no. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So, you know,
totally. That's our responsibility.
it's actually good that we are having this conversation, because certainly in our community I've seen so many members who are so wonderful people, such giving people, and you know, we become friends, and they would say, oh, you know, I'm just feeling really drained, you know, I and it's because they just give and give. They don't give themselves a break, and when they do, they feel guilty, like, oh, you know, I haven't been so productive. It's actually okay to switch off, and being able to tune in to your body, tune into your energy, knowing where when your body is telling you, you know, relax. It's gonna be okay. So for me, I told you earlier, we actually have siesta. We sleep in the afternoon without feeling guilty about it, because if my body needs to sleep, I'm gonna sleep. It's okay. And that's actually the beauty of being an entrepreneur as well. I have more autonomy over my time. If I want to sleep, I'll sleep. If I want to play with my kid, I'll play with my kid. There are
Yes.
there are times when, okay, launch mode, we have a structure that we have to do certain things for the launch, but I just have to tell my family, this is what's going on, organize the schedule in this way, and when I finish this, we'll play again. So that's the thing, setting the boundaries, being clear about your boundaries as well is really important. So that's the first challenge that you've noticed with heart-based entrepreneurs, that they give until they get burned out because they don't have boundaries. Is there anything else that you've noticed that they struggle with?
Yeah. So before I move on from that, there's a few things I wanted to touch on that I agree with you with. So the first one is like, if you want to take a nap during the day or go for an exercise, when the gym was open, or, do some work in the morning and then go to the beach in the afternoon, or, like what I used to love to do was like write in a cafe for a few hours, create some stuff and then go watch a movie and knock off.
Mm.
Like the whole point of, not the whole point, but a lot of one of the big reasons why people decide to start their own business and, be an entrepreneur even, is to have that freedom.
Yeah.
When you're in a traditional 9 to 5 job, you're locked in, or you're a full-time shift worker like I used to be,
No
it's
choice.
like, you want choice, you want independence, you want autonomy, you want choice, you want freedom. So if you're stopping yourself from actually having that, then you're going to wind up feeling the same way you did, in your old job, which is part of the reason probably why you wanted to move away from that.
Yeah, you
So
you
giving yourself
essentially just gave yourself a job.
yeah, just an
Yeah.
alternative one.
Yeah.
So choice was like a huge value for me, which is why another reason why I moved into working mostly for myself, because I wanted to have that choice. I wanted to wake up to no alarm. I wanted to be able to have an hour lunch break if I wanted one, not half an hour. I wanted to determine and dictate the hours that I worked and when and who I worked with and all that sort of freedom choices, which are so wonderful. And I'm thankful every day for them now. Like I literally put time aside and, thank a greater power out there, whether it's God, the universe, Buddha, whatever it is. I just thank whoever's out there, because it's like, you don't want to take it for granted. Otherwise it does feel like another job. The other thing is like functional selfishness. So I learned a lot of stuff about the ego last year, and one of the things that I learned was functional selfishness. So when you tend to be an overgiver, there's like a lack of selfishness with that as well, right? So having a functional sense of selfishness is actually a good thing, because it helps you function better. It's not you being a bad person. It's not you being selfish. It's actually having a healthy level of that, which is needed, for long-term success. And something that I love is actually a model called the pendulum. Have you heard of the pendulum, or your group heard of it? Because if not, I
No.
can share it.
Go
No?
ahead, please.
So it's like a, those big clocks where you've got the pendulum that hangs down. So the analogy, yeah, it swings from side to side. So the analogy is, and it's just terms, but it's more the meanings that is actually important about this. But when the pendulum swings all the way to one side, that's considered an extreme. And if you're on the codependent side, well, that's what that's actually called, codependent. So it's basically overgiving, people pleasing, not being able to say no, and all this sort of stuff. And then when it swings all the way to the other side, this is called independence. So I actually come from a background of relationship coaching. So the way I would explain it was the codependent's dependent on the lover or the partner or the husband or wife, and then in an unhealthy way. And then when the pendulum swings over and they go through like a breakup or some sort of trauma, the person that's on this side tends to kind of go, you know what, like it's that whole, I don't need no man, like I don't need love, I'm never going to get married
It's
again, like it's that
swing.
whole I don't need
Yeah.
I don't need anyone. And it's definitely required for recovery. And it's a phase you have to go through, but it's the opposite extreme, and that doesn't serve you either fully anyway. So actually coming into the middle is called interdependent. And that's when you have the best of both worlds, but in a healthy, functional way. So
It's
you have that,
balanced.
it's balance. Yeah. It's harmonious. It's balance. It's not one extreme to the other. It's actually a healthy way to be. So for me, in the past, especially in relationships and even in my career, I was very codependent. Like I got walked all over all the time. I was a typical doormat, you know. And that didn't serve me in a lot of ways. And in some ways it did. I felt really safe. It was familiar. It was the thing I did. But, after a while that caused a lot of pain and I got sick of it. So then I swung all the way over here and, that didn't serve me either. So I've learned to kind of be in the middle with a little bit of work, and it's been so much better. So I just wanted to share that pendulum example with
I love
everybody.
that. And it's, yeah, I know for many philosophies, and it's about finding that balance, finding your center, as they say, because when you go through extremes, it's actually not very helpful. And have you noticed this with heart-based entrepreneurs, that they overgive, and then when they burn out, then they swing to the other side, and it's not particularly helpful. So
Yeah.
it's wonderful to have this conversation, because I guess for many heart-based entrepreneurs, and for those who are in the giving professions, they're not even aware that
Yeah.
they are overgiving, because it's almost like just part of their nature. That's just who they
Yeah.
are, that they give and give and give, without necessarily keeping track of their own needs. And this term selfishness, it got a bad reputation, but being selfish is actually just tuning in to your own needs, and looking after your needs as well. Because if you are getting burned out, if you're getting drained, if you are I've certainly experienced that from my old job, where I just give and give and give, and I end up burning out, get I would say, experiencing abuse as well, because I don't even notice
Mm.
that, people are taking advantage of me, until
Mm.
your body gives up, and tells you, okay, you can't see, here you go, and you get sick, and your body actually tells you, okay, here you go, stop, just stop. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's good to have this
Actually,
conversation.
I love that you mentioned that, because I definitely went through the same thing. Like, give, and then things happen and then boom, you're sick. Like I used to get sick a lot. So lots of colds, lots of flus, feeling really run down, fatigued. Like, it was actually like, it's so crazy to think back to what I used to be like, because I hardly get sick now.
Mm.
Um, and it's amazing, like the difference. And something I talk to my clients about is the logical levels of change. So what I used to do was, and this was once again, like when I was in not such a great place, like I was with a narcissistic fiance at the time, living together, full-time shift worker. I wasn't happy in my career. I was doing the best that I possibly could be. I'd slap on a smile at work. No one would know. No one would be none the wiser. But on the inside, I was slowly dying, and would get home and my back was aching and my feet were aching and I hadn't eaten all day, so I felt faint. Like it was just awful. I had, co-workers shoving more work my way, taking advantage of me because they knew that I wouldn't say no. I was too nice. That was the way I
Mm.
justified it to
People
myself.
pleasing, yeah.
Yeah, massive people pleaser back then, massive, and it does stem, like for me anyway, back from childhood a little bit. So I've worked through all that sort of stuff with my coach, and it's so much better now. But the thing that was really interesting that I learned was, so like so there's three things. There's the mental intelligence, there's the intuitive intelligence, and then there's the spiritual intelligence. So the mental intelligence I was ignoring. I was denying it. I was like, nah, it's fine. I just didn't want to deal with it. I just wanted to run away, dig my head in the
Mm.
sand, do what I needed to do and not pay attention. But on an intuitive level, it was like, actually, there's something not quite right
You
here.
can
And
sense it.
it kept trying to like give me little warning signs, and I just kept ignoring them because I didn't want to deal with it. It was too hard, or I didn't even understand what was really going on. I just, I put in the too hard basket. And then what started to happen was it started to manifest physically. That's the third intelligence, the physical
Mm.
intelligence. So I would get, the massive shoulder pain. And if you look up Louise Hay, she goes through a lot of the emotional and spiritual reasons why you actually have physical manifestations and illnesses. And when I looked up her guide, I was fascinated to see where it's like you felt like the world was on your shoulders.
Because the
And like,
tension is there.
yeah. A lot of people lose their voice, and that's actually the voice chakra. And it's about suppressing your needs. So that was
Mm.
a really interesting thing to learn as well. Some people would get migraines because it was just all too much, and that was a physical manifestation. And things like I used to get like really, really, really sore feet, and that was about carrying. It was something about like not being happy with where you were standing or something like that.
Wow.
So yeah, when you don't pay attention to your intuition and you're ignoring the logic, like the conscious mind,
The
physically it has to
physical.
come out, because it's like, hello, I'm here, you're not listening to me, I'm going to make you listen now.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I can certainly relate to that because first you'll just have little bits like the cold. You're just you're susceptible all to all these minor things, and then when you still don't listen, then you get like the big stuff. For me, I actually ended up having IBS, irritable bowels, just
I've
really.
got that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just so awful because um I told my husband it's actually worse than giving birth because with labor, when you're in labor, you have breaks in between.
Yeah.
But with IBS it's just pain, and,
Crumbling.
and and there's nothing you can do about it. and
Yeah.
and I also got what's the word, vertigo. My mom had that, and
Mm.
there was one time when I just opened my eyes, I woke up, I turned, and just the whole world was just spinning so violently. So for me, that was a wake up call for me. That prompted me to reflect on what I was doing at that time. And 6 months later, I quit my job. It
Oh,
was just like,
congratulations.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I did, but it was and I haven't been sick. I haven't had vertigo attacks. Since I left that job. So it was quite freeing. But to have to get my body to be in that position where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
it's not going well, and the body responds in that way, poking me
Yeah.
to say, changes or you're gonna die. You're
Yeah, it's
literally
trying to
gonna
speak to you.
die.
It's trying to
Yeah,
tell you this isn't right for you right now. Like,
just
hello, what are you
stop.
doing?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I've got IBS too, and it's much better managed now, but you never get rid of it because it's just something you've got to deal with. So that's another physical manifestation that can come up, actually, is like a lot of digestive issues. So for me, I know now that I hold most of my tension in my shoulders and my neck and my gut. So
Mm.
whenever I felt stressed at work, it would it clamp together, and that would actually interfere. So your digestion, without getting too visual, guys, it's supposed to go like this, like nice and smooth, and that's things being pushed through your intestine. But with stress, or with like it impacting IBS, it actually goes da 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 da, and that's the pain, that's the
Ah.
bloating. It doesn't have that smooth motion. It's like this. That's exactly what it's doing.
Oh, I
And
didn't
so it's
know
really,
that. It's just
yeah,
really painful. Yeah. I still experience every now and then, but it wasn't as bad as it used to. And I know when I'm about to have IBS, I'll tell my, oh no. I think I'm gonna have it in 2 days, because but at least I can monitor it now, and then I'll pause and then
yes,
say, okay,
you can
I
stop yourself.
don't want that. So I think I just need to chill. and
Yes.
and eat, actually, because I actually do get IBS when I eat after like 10:30, like if I skip breakfast or something. So it's me not looking after myself, and not um eating properly, and yeah, just not taking good care of myself. But
Yeah.
Olivia, I really appreciate this conversation that we had today, especially for heart-based entrepreneurs. For many heart-based entrepreneurs, it's just really giving and so purposeful, lots of energy. But it actually goes back to the conversations that we've had, these past couple of weeks with other guests about taking, setting boundaries, looking after yourself, knowing that it's actually okay to say no,
Yeah.
without feeling guilty about it. Because if your cup is empty, you can't actually give, if you're drained and exhausted in that way. So, Olivia, if there's any final message that you'd like to share with our audience as far as being a heart based entrepreneur is concerned, what do you have to say to them?
Yeah. So, firstly, what I'd like to say is, when I used to listen to this sort of content, and it's great because it's a really, really good starting point. It's like identifying, okay, cool, this is a common theme. And if you've already spoken about this with other people around heart based entrepreneurialism and overgiving and boundaries and people pleasing and not saying yes all the time to everyone, it's pretty safe to say that it's a pretty common thing that a lot of us, have to work through. So when I used to listen to that sort of stuff, I was kind of like, oh, that's all really nice in theory, but how do you do that? I was like, how do I start boundaries? Where do I start? What do I say? How do I handle myself? What if I piss someone off? Like, how does it all work? Because there's so much more beneath the surface too. So I think If you're anyone like that, feel free to send me a private message or reach out, and I can kind of go into a bit more depth around it too, because it's good to be aware of it. And then it's a totally different thing when you're actually putting it into practice and experiencing it, because let's be honest, like some people are used to you being a certain way and acting a certain way and behaving a certain way. And then when you start actually increasing and raising your standards on how you want to be treated and how you want to treat others and show up in the world and in your business, it's, you know, not always going to be perfectly well received by everyone. Some people will really respect it and love you for it and go, yay, go you, that's awesome. And then
Yeah.
others are like, hang on a second,
What's going
Olivia, you've
on
been like
here?
this for so long. Yeah. Like, what's happening? You've changed, you know, like it's a bad thing. So just be prepared for both responses. And at the end of the day, like, you know, for you to show up as your best self, what does that look like? And, you know, what's it going to cost you if you keep going on and not doing these things, you know, in your business? And because that's what we're talking about, business. So I think for heart-based entrepreneurs, the other thing I'd like to say is like, just be really thankful for your heart and your gift. I think it's precious. I think it's something that should be celebrated. You know, even though a lot of today was about, you know, be aware of this and be careful of that, and it might seem a bit negatively geared, I just want to say that if you're in this group and you identify yourself as being a heart-based entrepreneur, it's definitely by no means a disadvantage. If anything, I think it gives you a massive advantage as a person, and also like in your business as well, because people can pick up on your energy when you're just in it for you and wanting to sell you something, as opposed to someone that actually wants to meet you halfway and actually wants
Mm.
to get to know you, like
See where
cares
you're
about
at.
you.
Mm.
Yeah, the intention and energy is everything. And give yourself permission to continue being a heart-based entrepreneur. Don't let the world harden you in any way. See it as a gift, be thankful for it, and work with it.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you very much, Olivia. If people would like to get in touch, connect with you, where can they find you?
So I actually have my own podcast, as you know, called Slaying Your Side Hustle, which I adore. It's my little baby. I'm also on Facebook called Slaying Your Side Hustle Online. So I've got a group there. And on Instagram, it's just Olivia Powell Coaching. I love Instagram stories. You will see me, you know, dancing and jamming out on there. So if you like Insta, then let's party together. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you want to email me, it's oliviapowellcoaching@gmail.com. But more importantly, like if you like this video or you've gotten something out of it, you relate to it, you've gone through something similar to us, please just let us know. Like we love to hear feedback, don't we? Connect.
Awesome. Oh yeah, absolutely. Just yeah, the beauty of online stuff is that you can get the feedback. You can actually interact with your audience. It's not a one-way street. You can have this conversation and engagement because it is
Totally.
there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely reach out.
thank you very much, Olivia, and thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope that you found value from this conversation. And I mean, you know, we've been having the same theme over and over again for these past couple of weeks, you know, for heart-based entrepreneurs and actually for those who are also in the giving professions. We also have to be thankful of our gifts, or you know, be thankful for what we have to offer, but also keep track of yourself, you know, keep track of your energy. See if your energy is actually in tune with your with your people as well. Give, but also look after yourself. Monitor how you're responding, because if your cup is empty, you won't be able to give. But anyway, everyone, thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch up again next time for another purposeful conversations with me, Emmy, here in the Pami Code Facebook group. Until then, take care and bye for now. Bye.
Bye.